Peace, everybody, and welcome back to the Black Only News and Entertainment Network. Before we get started, I want to shout out to two brothers on the bottom of the screen on the corners, the brother in the glasses and the light skinned brother, for keeping it real. And you can see the reaction that Jason Whitlock had when these two brothers gave their answers. And in my opinion, it was a beautiful, beautiful sight to see. Anyway, let's get into it.
Delano, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'll ask it differently. More ninjas or more Negroes? And Wilford, prepare to answer this question.
I mean, in my personal experience, it's definitely more Negroes than ninjas. But I'm not blind to the reality that many ninjas exist. I will say this, though, because I want to be honest in terms of the conversation. The whole notion of black fatigue, at least as it relates to the social media phenomenon of black fatigue, is not just a ninja conversation. Because I see plenty of, accounts where it'll be a room full of black doctors or engineers, young people, and somebody will get on there and say, "Oh, but let me see your MCAT. Let me see your GRE scores. I bet they were lower than the average white person." So, at least again, and I'm separating social media from real life, because I don't get most of this stuff in my real life. I mean, I certainly see some ninja activity in my real life, but in terms of the tension, the racial tension, I don't have that in my real life. And part of that is just the circles I'm in, the neighborhood I live in, the people that I'm around, so on and so forth. But the online phenomenon is not just criticism of ninja activity. It's criticism of black people in prominent positions, and the notion that they got there because they did not have the same they had lower qualifications than some of their white peers. And I've seen that, and I've responded to some people, some of them very well-known white conservatives, by the way, asking them to sort of explain how they drew certain conclusions. So I'll put
Let me ask you this. Let me put a small pin and ask you a follow-up.
Okay.
Because things in American culture are so divided along political lines, and I think inappropriately divided along political lines, that perhaps what your black doctors, lawyers, professionals, professors, so many of them are leftists, that there's a fatigue from people on the conservative side of just like, hey, when are you going to acknowledge that this leftist stuff, this destruction of the nuclear family, blah, blah, blah. And so black doctors, lawyers, intellectuals, college professors, many of them all believe that racism explains everything. And there's a fatigue over that among conservatives that are like, nah, man, the destruction of family explains everything, or all these negative outcomes. And so that maybe that the pushback is about your political ideology being leftist, and they believe there's a denial of the realities. Like, yeah, y'all want to keep going down that Marxist leftist route and then keep complaining that you're not getting the results that people in traditional families are getting. There's a fatigue over that, the denial of just factual truth. God intended for man and woman to be married and raise their children, and if you don't do that, you're going to see a lot of people tatted up with pants hanging off their rear end, smoking weed, and being very rude.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly see criticisms of leftists, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to say leftist, don't say black, right? If you have ignorance fatigue, then say ignorant. But once you put a racial descriptor on, and again, the things that I'm seeing or the issues that I'm referring to are not ones where someone is pushing back on a black person, blaming racism for why black people are not further ahead. I'm talking about, again, it's a room full of people that no one knows. Or if you get on a plane and you're a conservative influence, you said, "Oh, I just saw there's a black pilot. Oh, pray to God that the plane lands safely." That's not an issue of ninja behavior. Or I'll give another example, and I name names just because so people don't have to guess what I'm talking about. During the election last year, when Charlie Kirk referred to Lloyd Austin, right, as a DEI hire. My question is, in what sense is Lloyd Austin a DEI hire? He has all of the qualifications that all the previous secretaries of defense had. But if DEI is stand-in, and DEI I think is part of the black fatigue phenomenon. If DEI is a stand-in for black people on the center left in prominent positions, who I believe got there primarily because of their skin color, then you got to own that. So I'm a big person in not conflating different issues. And yes, as somebody who has lived in and around cities my entire life and worked and much respect to Officer Tatum, because he was out there on the front lines as a police officer. My last year in city government in D.C. was at the Office of Gun Violence Prevention. And yes, I did have fatigue with every single morning. The police captain, one of the captains or higher up saying, young black male, young black male, young black male, for both perpetrator and victim. Yes, I did get fatigued by that. But some of the stuff I see online is not just about what black people are doing. It's the notion that black people are being in a particular space at a particular time.
95% clip seems to be in support. Feminism, leftist, Democrat Party, blah, blah, blah. And so we've been stereotyped, people with our skin color, as like, you support the entire leftist agenda, and I'm frustrated by it.
Yeah, I think there's a mix of things going on, and that is one of them. But I think Delano also made a pretty good point. I will say on my social media, I've been arguing with the feminists in particular for the past couple of weeks about these crazy issues like, is your husband wanting sex a form of slavery? So, I mean, I think there's a lot of lunatic nonsense out there. And I do think black people are associated with that. But I took a couple notes on this pad here. One, I don't think that there are more ninjas, as we're all politely saying, than Negroes in the black community. I think if you look at, we sometimes overhype this black women are the most educated group and so on. They're actually third. But there are a lot of just normal black people in this country. I think all of us are pretty representative, actually. You go down to the police station, which I do as an academic. We're trying to get young men jobs. You're going to see about 30% black cops. They're just going to be hanging around BSing with the white cops. I mean, they're a very large number of normal people. Also, like I said, I live in Kentucky, and I don't want to insult my neighbors, but you really do see that ninja behavior is pretty cross-racial. I mean, down here, if you're playing basketball across the street from a trailer park and there's someone sitting on the porch in a quote-unquote wife beater drinking a 40-ounce, the odds they're black are like 1 in 8. I mean, and you can see that in the income stats for Appalachia, so on. So I think everyone needs to be critical of that kind of thing from a religious perspective, political perspective, policing perspective. The second thing I noted down is that social media is a really enhanced version of reality. So the black crime rate is about twice the white crime rate right now. And everyone records these videos of fist fights at their high school and this kind of stupid thing, stuff that happens once every 100 days maybe. And they upload that to social. And you're going to see a disproportionate number of black people involved in that. And that is definitely going to make people have a more critical view of black people. And that's going to spread over to other things. So I agree with Delano that when you see maybe the scores at Howard are 5% lower than the scores at...
I agree with that. And then when you have these coons like Jason Whitlock and Officer Tatum, the Messy Machons, the OK Riggs, the Anton Daniels here on YouTube, and all they do is show negative things about black people. Well, of course, white people, if they're watching their channel, and most white people do watch their channels, that's all they'll see as well. They'll just see black people fighting or doing whatever, fighting on a cruise ship, and then I have to turn around and show white people fighting on a cruise ship because these coons and these Aunt Jemimas won't do it on their channels.
Appalachians or Hispanics or Native Americans